This episode is brought to you by Control N Consulting, where innovation meets expertise. We specialize in a range of services, including analysis and planning, custom software development, project management, as well as training and support. Our team is dedicated to ensuring the highest standards in quality assurance and testing. Choose Control N Consulting as your go-to partner for digital transformation and experience solutions tailored to propel your business forward.
Welcome to the show. Today, we have a very special guest, someone who's very close to my heart, Tami Maiwashe, an engineer turned teacher turned engineer. Welcome to the show.
I am so excited to be here, to be a pilot.
Yes. All right, cool. So can you briefly, maybe just for the people, tell us how you started and maybe taking it from university?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm tempted to take it even further back than that. So maybe to my journey starting to study computer science, deciding to start. When I applied to study computer science, I thought computer science was working with spreadsheets and Microsoft Word, which I felt like I was an absolute whiz at. And you can imagine my surprise when I now get to class and people are talking about Java and Hello World and hey, public static void main. And that confusion kind of continued for a good couple of years. Like when I first graduated, I wasn't entirely sure what kind of a job I could go into with this qualification. Anyway, so I did my undergrad in computer science and then my honors. And from there, I worked at the CSIR for 2 years. And I mean, just to kind of demonstrate the level of disjoint that existed between the thing that I was studying and actually using it in practice. I remember one of my first days at the CSIR, I was told that I'm going to help build the server for a web application. And I was so confounded because I was like, a server?
Is this just as you're starting?
Yeah, this is one of the, And I'm thinking the actual, I don't know, very big computer in a basement somewhere. I'm like, how am I going to build that?
Hardware server.
Yeah. But when they explained what the work would actually be, I was like, oh, okay, I kind of remember learning about this in third year when we did networking, that is, client software, server software, and we're going to be building the server software. But it was such a, it felt like there was another level of schooling that happened when I started working where all of a sudden there's these very abstract, and maybe they weren't completely abstract. I'm sure if I went back now and I studied the same content, it would make sense in the context of what I've experienced. But yeah, I'm just trying to show that from thinking programming is Excel, which in a way it kind of is, to Java and all sorts of other, I remember in honors, we did a database course and they were talking about data lakes and data warehouses. And in my mind, I'm like, are we talking about a lake, a body of water? What's going on here, right?
It's all new terminology.
It's all new terminology in such a foreign world. And I think this context is also important in terms of how that affected me, psychologically going into the field. Because if I think about the people I was in class with, there were people who, from the jump, knew what was up. And, if you ask them to build an app, it wasn't going to be like, oh, where do I begin? It was just like, they knew the industry a little bit. They knew. Whereas for me, it was just, what's going on? And I think that kind of resulted in a bit of an imposter syndrome where I was getting the grades And at work, I was writing the code, but I was just always feeling like someone is going to expose me. It just showed that this girl really doesn't know what's popping.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Did you, before university, before university, did you have any other career path in mind, or was it just computer science and then whatever comes after that?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I'll tell you how I decided computer science. When I was in grade 10, Standard Bank had this Olympiad, this computer science Olympiad, I think they called it.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't a programming thing. It was, like these psychometric tests that companies do, these patterns and whatnot. There was a whole bunch of questions like that. And I scored decently. It wasn't amazing, but I was quite chuffed. I was the best in the school. So I think that kind of...
Decently.
Yeah,
the best in the school.
I think it was like 75%. Come on. But I think that kind of sowed the seed of like computer science. And I think I just hung on to the computer part because I did use computers quite a bit. So that was kind of maybe the beginning of that idea. And then come matric, when I needed to decide, okay, what am I applying for? It wasn't the first thing that came to mind. Literally, my process was looking at the list of programs at a school and deciding, okay, no, it's not law. I'm not interested in humanities. I'm not interested in health. Literally just the process of elimination. Ended up in the Faculty of Science, eliminated oceanography, eliminated physics, right? And it came down to, computer science and that Olympiad that I once did and kind of got 75% for. It's a sign. So, yeah, in that sense, it wasn't really like something that I thought about and I thought my being aligns with this profession. It was just kind of, I know how to use Excel. I should be able to do computer science.
Right.
Yeah.
Almost natural progression towards...
I don't know how natural it was. And I think, I mean, just as a proper tangent now, one of the kind of passions that was birthed from that period of my life was how do we bridge the gap between, a kid doing physics and biology in high school and then having to make the decision of, okay, what am I studying next? I think for some fields, maybe it's a bit straightforward. Like, I mean, medicine, we know what doctors do. Yeah. But how do you get a kid to understand what a computer engineer does? Or, this data science all of a sudden that's like exploding. How does a kid look at a university prospectus and like go like, I identify with this without necessarily having like all of the experiential context of that work. Anyway, but that's just like a proper side note.
I'm one of those people who got into IT by pure chance.
Yeah.
Because like you say, I had no idea what that is.
Right, right.
The only thing I knew about computers is Word and playing games. So it was just a matter of couldn't get to study what I wanted to study.
Yeah.
And then word of mouth, friend of a friend kind of a thing. And then anyway, I ended up in multimedia technology, which was like under the IT department. And, because I didn't have that context. But yeah, that's interesting. So now you're doing computer science and you are inside. Right? At which point did you think, okay, cool, I want to do front end or back end? Or was there a point where you were like, okay, cool, you've decided, or you were just going all
in? No, look. So, and I think this is also like kind of something I've been thinking about over the course of my career. And maybe it's a bit misinformed, but this is a platform for dialogue. Comment with all your thoughts. But I feel like computer science is quite theoretical. And I think in general, studying at a university it feels like it gears you towards a career in academia. I'm coming to the question, I promise. I'll come back. So just to give you like an idea of the kinds of things we covered in undergrad, maybe just like a glimpse at our third year, we had a module that was looking at compilers, how compilers are built. We had a module looking at how operating systems are built. We looked at the nuts and bolts of networking. So it wasn't necessary. To me, it didn't feel like practical knowledge. It's I guess practical depending on where you want to go, right? If you want to go be Bill Gates and build the next bestest Windows, 100%, that's your lane. But like I mentioned earlier, when I was studying computer science, I didn't have a concept of what kind of work, what do you go out and do day to day. Especially because like when I looked at the kinds of assignments that I needed to do, one that springs to mind was is something to do with sorting algorithms, right? And I love that kind of stuff. Like, this is why that Olympiad in high school meant so much to me, because I was like, I like doing puzzles. So if this means I could be good at computer science, then let's do it. So there we are doing assignments, writing sorting algorithms. And in my mind, the back of my mind, it's like, so when I go out and work, am I waking up and writing a sorting algorithm? Like, what is it? Anyway, so I would then say that the decision of firstly going into web dev, and then secondly deciding front end versus back end, that kind of, it wasn't necessarily a conscious decision on my part. My studies were sponsored in honors. I was sponsored by the CSIR. So I didn't even go through the process of looking at different companies and trying to understand, okay, how do they use programming for their business? And it was just, I was funneled into the CSIR. I was funneled into a particular department. They were, I think they had just started experimenting with web dev. So that's how I landed up in web dev. And then at that point, I was full stack. I was looking at both front end and back end. Honestly, I think that if I wasn't so caught up in my own, the imposter syndrome drama, I think that I would have gravitated more towards back end. I think that's more aligned with how I function. My current career, my current job, I'm a front end, which is okay. I don't focus on the visuals of it because I don't have that eye. So I enjoy the logic part of front end. Yeah.
So CSR, like you say, it was just a matter of you had to go through there, and so you do. So you do the dev work at CSIR, and then at some point you decide teaching. How did that come about from dev? Did you not enjoy it? And just what was going on?
I think that in general, I don't know. I'm gonna say in general, but for me, the 20s. If you had a smooth sailing 20s, I envy you. Like, I just feel like 20s are so turbulent. Like, all of a sudden, the buck stops with you for everything. It's like, like, anyway. So a couple of things factored into that decision. The overarching drive was that I felt God told me in a dream. And that was the final authority. But looking back at it now, I feel like I had never become comfortable in IT. I was too uncertain about myself.
The imposter syndrome was like hectic at this time.
Yeah. And without really knowing it, it's not even like anyone was reinforcing it. The people at the CSIR were so supportive. My performance reviews were always glowing. So it was really me and my own demons. So I think that was a big part of it. Another big part of it was And I love my CSIR peeps. Shout out to the CSIR peeps.
Shout out.
But it felt like our products were not, they were never surfacing. So we would work on something and it would be very exciting. We worked on a number of things that really felt fun and like they would create impact if they reached the people they needed to reach.
Was it because you see, actually, I hear a lot of that with developers where, yeah, it sounds like we are working on something cool, but we never see it. Was it a research department? I mean, the CSR is about research and all, but was it a research department?
Not really. It's like, and this was always funny, like with our performance reviews, because there'd be a KPI to do with like, what have you published? And we're like, I remember, if you look for me online, you'll find some article that I was a co-author of. I didn't write anything on that paper. So we just happened to be in a research institution, but we were properly, I mean, sometimes the way we branded ourselves was that we were the IT branch for government. So one of the biggest projects that I remember working on is they were trying to build, I think it was called the Health Population Registration System. So yeah, like, in health, there isn't a central place where your records are kept. It's this hospital has your records, that hospital has your records. Maybe in the private field, Netcare, all the Netcares will have access to your records that you created when you were at Netcare, but there isn't one central place where you can see everyone's health stuff. And I think this was kind of the very slow moving towards NHI. One of the big milestones was to create a system where we could have everyone's health info centrally. Why am I mentioning that?
What eventually what led to you switching to teaching?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like there was a sub point.
Okay, let's keep it going.
Anyway, okay, I feel like maybe I'll remember later on why I brought up that project specifically.
Oh, I think it was because it looked like at first it was something that would be
go out there.
Yes, and then
eventually,
to the KPI question is, okay, cool, what have you done? Then it's, I've worked on this project.
Right.
Yeah. No.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It is getting warmer. But thank you.
Okay, cool.
Part 2.
But yeah, but maybe let's just then move on to the teaching part of your career. So you change careers altogether.
Yes.
You do teaching for 5 years, 6 years?
Yeah, it was from 2016 and my last year was 2021. So 6 years.
6 years teaching.
Yeah.
So yeah, how was it first of all coming from software to IT and
from software to teaching? Is it from software to IT?
Yes, from software to teaching.
Right.
Yeah, how was the journey and how did you find teaching at the time?
Yeah. So yeah, I guess when I went into teaching, it was from a place of wanting to do work where I could see impact. So I think that was quite a big vision to carry into the career. And I think that kind of set it up for its demise. But anyway, I was excited about it because I think another kind of big question mark throughout my 20s has been, how do I get to do maths? I like maths. When can I do maths? So I think that was another thing that kind of factored into teaching was, then I get to do maths every single day of my life.
Because you ended up teaching maths.
Yes, I was teaching maths. I had to choose a second subject to teach as well. So I chose IT rather begrudgingly because imposter syndrome. Teaching, how do I summarize that career? It was a very stressful job, which I didn't expect.
Why? Yeah. Yeah.
It's something that I thought I would be a natural at. But there are a couple of things that worked against that. So I think on the one hand, I wasn't willing to reckon with the fact that you can't subscribe to ideals all the time. So with teaching, I felt like I had a very idealistic image of how it should work. Kids should learn things at their pace. They shouldn't be tested until they're ready. These are all things that we actually learn when we're studying to be teachers. We learn about what a good learning environment is. But then in practice, you can't, it just doesn't work that way. We have a test on the 25th of Feb, and if Billy still doesn't understand Pythagoras by then,
Too bad.
yeah, no, the bus moves. So I think they just like, I got frustrated with a lot of systemic flaws, if I can call them that, in all my, maybe it sounds arrogant, but they are flaws. And I think the stress of the job was me not being willing to accept that. So kind of trying to go above and beyond to overcome the limitations of the system and try and show up for each kid, which just became burnout very quickly.
Yeah. And then are there any key lessons that you took from your 6 years in teaching that you use in your current job?
Ooh. That's an interesting one. It feels like I achieved nothing in my 6 years as a teacher. It's like I have no lessons.
Or maybe has that time, because you see, teaching, you're dealing with it's a lot of soft skills required, more than anything.
Right.
Maybe the communication aspect of it, or just how, because also developers are most of us anyway, we like working in isolation as much as possible.
Yeah.
And you need to be very quick and very concise when you're communicating with a developer. Otherwise,
you lose me.
You lose me. You know what I mean? So maybe those are the things I'm looking at.
Right. I mean, it's interesting you bring that up as an example, because I think that was part of my downfall as a teacher, honestly, was I didn't communicate well. It was also because it was such an intimidating space. Like, ideally you should be roping in other teachers to say, I don't really know what to do about this kid, or roping in the parents to say, your kid. But that kind of communication, at least in my eyes, came with like, hey, especially by the parent side. Ooh, I remember a particular parents meeting where this guy was just going at me like, pretty much it's your fault my kid is failing, or what are you going to do about my kid failing? So I wasn't the best communicator as a teacher. So I can't lie and say that I've transferred that skill to coding. In fact, I think I'm getting better at it in my current space in IT, and that's because of the environment being a lot more relaxed.
Yeah. Do you think, have you ever thought of going back to teaching, but then teaching IT?
Oh, I wouldn't do that. I'm not interested in teaching anymore. I'm interested in education. I think that I think my time in teaching showed me that being a teacher is not where I will create the kind of impact that I'm interested in. I'm more interested in the system and how we can make the system better. Because honestly, even within a perfect system, I think I would get tired of talking about Pythagoras every year.
But would you get tired of talking about algorithms?
I think in general, I also just prefer learning over teaching. So I would love to be a student in a classroom all day, every day. But being the one that has to figure out like, ooh, how do I facilitate a conversation around this, or how do I describe this from different angles? I'm not interested in it. But definitely, I am very keen at some point in my life to go back into education, and I'm especially interested in seeing how we can bring technology in more to help, because I think currently, for the most part, technology is more of an enemy in education.
Yeah.
If I can give an example, and I give this example often, but I remember at one of the schools where I worked, it was during COVID. And so kids had to do tests at home, which is already just like, they're going to cheat.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, there was this app that was gaining popularity where you can take a picture of a maths problem and it solves it. And so you were getting...
What? So you would just take the picture and
of like an equation, and then it solves the equation for you step by step. Very cool. I saw that and I was like, whoa. Other teachers saw that and they're like, because they're gonna cheat. Whereas I think if the system was a bit more robust, we would welcome developments like that. Like, of course, there's like a balance between, okay, what are the principles that kids still need to learn?
Yeah.
But at the same time, the conversation must be dynamic. Like, if a computer can do this work now, does that not free us up to level up and think about problems that are a bit more complex? So challenge kids to say, okay, the computer generated this result.
Yeah.
Now apply it to, a more abstract problem.
Yeah.
So yes, I am so keen at some point to go back into education and see how technology can be an ally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now I think we've reached the time where we kind of cool off a bit.
Yeah.
So
oh my goodness, already.
I will give you a few cards. You pick a card and then you try and describe whatever you see on the card.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So let's see. My
props. Love props.
So I have these cards.
Okay.
You will pick something and then we'll call this section host versus guest. I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
So you pick a card. If I get it right, then it's 1 point for the host.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Middle feels like yes. Okay. Oh, so okay. I'm gonna show you what the card is.
Oh,
there are no answers yet.
Okay.
So we're really gonna be guessing.
So this is a flag of...
I don't know. Where's that flag from?
Yeah.
I think it's South American, but I don't know.
South American.
Yeah. Those colors.
Wait,
and
we're not supposed to be
stars.
working together on this. You're supposed to keep your clues to yourself.
That's what IT life is about. It's about pair programming.
That's a fair point. All right. 5 seconds are up.
Okay.
Wait, 5 seconds, in case you didn't know.
Oh.
What's your guess?
Oh, can I look again? Just 2 more seconds. Oh, 2 more. I'm trying to see if this code will give me a clue. Venezuela?
Venezuela?
Yeah.
What makes you think Venezuela?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of all the South American countries I know.
It is Venezuela indeed. All right. That's 1 for the guest. All right. Let's move on. We'll come back to these cards.
Okay.
All right, cool. So now you do your 6 years in teaching and then you decide, you know what? It's time to go back to IT.
Yeah.
What were the challenges you faced when you were re-entering IT?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, immediately what comes to mind is being outdated. When I did web dev at the CSIR, Backbone.js was the ish. That was like the talk of the town. We did all of our web dev with Backbone.js as a front end framework. And so to come back into IT and Backbone.js has exited the group chat, like, it's like, whoa, there are new players. And I mean, in my time as a teacher, the only programming that I was still doing was pretty much with spreadsheets, and so I wasn't really keeping up to date. And I did a bit of Java, something for my mom, but nothing intensive. So I was very, very rusty. But I think this is where it also helped having studied computer science, where it focused on fundamentals. So in as much as it wasn't, I didn't feel like ready to go into work after studying. Um, it gave me the abstract tools. It's like, okay, I know what inheritance is. I know what
Okay, so you
encapsulation is.
you still had the basics.
Yeah. So it's like, it's
Yeah.
just about, okay, I need to just get up to date with like whatever new language I'm working with. I mean, I hardly remember JavaScript. But the programming fundamentals were still there. So that
And
helped.
at this point, did you have an idea whether you want to still be full stack, or
I mean,
did you even know which language maybe you want to focus on?
I didn't feel like I had the privilege of choice, the luxury of choice. I knew that my CV looked sketchy. You know, it's 2 years of programming, 6 years of hiatus in programming, and then pretty much I'm coming back as entry level. Like I did it really. Even in my applying for jobs, I wasn't discriminating at all. It was just whoever wants to take a chance on me,
Let's go.
I will level up. Yeah. So yeah, I think that was the one big hurdle, was kind of having to come back up to speed with where things were at. And I think the job hunting process itself was also a minefield. Like, I don't know how many companies I got in touch with. It must have been in excess of 50. And it's a situation where maybe the first 5, you're like, yes, I will write custom cover letters, I will customize my CV. But hey, when you're just being ghosted from there, you're like, I don't know if I have the energy to be doing that for every single job application that I am doing. And then within the process of applying, you know, now you're getting assignments from company A, company B, company C.
It's part of the hiring process.
Right. It's like, if you want to talk to us, this is not even we're talking to you yet. It's just, if you want to talk to us, you must first jump through this hoop.
So all 50 just sending
you
technical challenges.
So I think that was also that was a bit intense as well.
I mean, look, on one hand, you can say it's a good thing that they are sending you these because they liked what they saw.
Right. It's like, yeah, you it's a screening.
Yeah, it's a screening. Like, okay, cool. We like what we see, but do this. So at least that's a...
It's a nod. It's a bit of a nod. It's a small nod.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's taxing. And some of them are quite intense. Like, some of them, it's like, you know, maybe just coding like a little question there. Some of them, it's like proper, like, hey, taking me back to university type of assignments, you know, drawing class diagrams and hey.
Did you have a portfolio of some sort at this point? Or, because I guess what I'm trying to get to is, do you feel like it was justified if you had a portfolio?
Yeah, I think I think for someone like me, who my portfolio was very lean, there was one project that it was a passion project of mine. And this is always my thing with projects. I'm always building for myself. So there was something that I did start working on kind of as a way to brush up my skills in web dev. So that was my portfolio, the beginning and the end. So things like technical challenges work in my favor because, you know, my portfolio was a bit lean. But I think more broadly, I feel like a portfolio tells you more than a technical challenge could tell you. And again, it's a platform for dialogue. If you disagree, you know, let's chat. But yeah, especially like some of them aren't rigorous in the supervision, right? So, and maybe this is not a bad thing, or, you know, maybe I'm demonstrating that I can use ChatGPT to solve this problem, and that's valuable. But yeah, if you're saying that we're giving you a challenge, we want to see your ability, and then I have 24 hours.
Hectic. And in the real world, chances are you were not gonna get that tight of a deadline. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, 24 hours it's not a thing. But
that
you
tight
had to
of a
solve
deadline and all by yourself without talking
All
to
by
someone,
yourself,
without
yeah.
consulting technologies like ChatGPT, like Google, like Stack Overflow. Like I remember one of my interview questions for my current job was, what are the arguments for the array dot reduce method?
Mm.
Yay? And it's not that I haven't used it. It's just whenever I need to use it, I just go to MDN.
You just Google it and see how to do it.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. I think sometimes we're kidding ourselves with these challenges.
So do you think then are technical assessments justified, if that makes sense?
I think anything is justified depending on how you decide to use it or how you decide to interpret the results.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we just have to have a nuanced interpretation of technical challenges. And I think it's also maybe from person to person as well. I know that creates an additional layer of work for the people processing applications, but I think technical challenges maybe make sense for someone like me where I don't have an extensive, I can't really, a lot of the work that I've done has been for companies. I can't demonstrate that.
Yeah.
But for someone who has a GitHub that is popping, you can see that this person authored commits. And I think it's immaterial if that was helped by Stack Overflow, if that was helped by Copilot. I think that's immaterial. Then I don't really understand the purpose of technical challenges. I think also the kinds of challenges that people present, sometimes it's like so tangential to the actual work, the actual day-to-day work. Like, I don't know, someone will have to explain to me, like, why are you giving me a technical challenge about sorting algorithm, and then my day-to-day work is HTML.
I must say that the last two technical challenges I did were very relevant to the work I ended up doing. At least. One was a map. The other one was the steps. Imagine a shopping cart where now you are in this step.
Okay,
fair. So it was a widget of sorts that
like
kind of illustrates the
tracker,
progress. So you're right. It's very different from what you will end up actually doing most of the time.
Yeah.
I guess on the hiring process, I think there's just too many steps, too many stages in these hiring processes where, especially in your case, where now you have 50 places where you applied, and then you still have to go through like 5 interview stages. Sometimes I just feel like, you know what, this person has a portfolio, this person has this person has that. I don't know. I feel like as much as we need standards, companies must be very flexible as to how they conduct these things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't be just giving a default 6 hiring stages, just to anyone and everyone, So you must just...
It's like, what are we trying to establish?
What are we trying to establish?
Yeah. And maybe for some people we need more than for other people. Maybe. Hey, it's just that's where the moment there's differences, that's where scope for unfairness creeps in. So I guess it's more straightforward to just standardize for everyone. But like it is different. It really is different from candidate to candidate.
Yeah. All right, cool. Now let's get into the current job. And how you ended up where you are currently. I don't know if you want to mention the name or not, but
love you, Mr. D.
Yes. So you work for South Africa's biggest e-commerce company. I don't know if is Mr. D a department or a subsidiary.
Hey man. But it is a company in and of itself. Yes.
Even though it's under Takealot.
But it's under the Takealot group. But I don't know the technicalities of that relationship.
Okay, cool. So how did you end up there? And just tell me about your journey so far with Mr. D.
Oh man, I have such a soft spot for Mr. D because, like I said, when I came back into the IT job market, my outlook was, I'm just looking for someone to take a chance on me, and I will show up. And the time that I was undergoing the job application process with Mr. D, there was also another company that I was in conversation with. But that conversation was unfortunately taking a bit long. And Mr. D just kind of showed up within 10 days. I had an offer, like from time of applying.
A streamlined interview process.
Yay.
Right.
And even like just the technical interview was talking about the project that I had been working on, and just kind of, why did you do this way? And and then there was the reduce question that just dropped in somewhere.
We have to. You can't just relax. You can't just relax.
But even then, like I didn't feel uncomfortable to say, the guy kept saying, what's the last one? I'm like, is it? It's like, no, is it? Bro. But it was such a relaxed, all the interviews that I had, I think I had 3 in total. They were all just so relaxed, and I think from there already I was getting a sense that this is the kind of place that I want to work in.
Sorry, just you mentioned something about the interview where there were things you got stuck on. I think it's important to highlight that during the interview process, you're not gonna know everything.
100%. Yeah.
In fact, I believe if you treat an interview like a conversation, because as much as we want to see where you stand technically, right, on the code side of things, it's also more about your problem solving skills, like how you think through it.
Yes.
So maybe don't be too fixated on solving the algorithm.
Yes.
Talk through it.
Yeah.
See how we just want to get the vibe.
100%.
So to speak,
100%.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. No, that I completely agree. I think it's also it's a demonstration of soft skills like problem solving. Is problem solving a soft skill? But yeah, definitely, like it speaks to your problem solving, but also soft skills like maybe like your attitude, right? Like how do you respond when you're in a position where you don't know stuff?
Yeah.
So is your response to be arrogant, or is your response to kind of be open and say, I'm not sure? Is your response to just freeze up and say, I don't know completely, and that's the end of the conversation? Yeah, I think they also derive things like that from how you respond, not necessarily the content of your response. But yeah, Mr. D, 10 days, I have my offer. And I mean, I think I must also just mention, they, companies and asking, what was your previous salary?
Yeah.
And what are your expectations? I don't remember if they asked what my previous one is, but like, what are your expectations salary wise? And, I mentioned a number. It wasn't even like market related. It was just me feeling like I don't really know much, but I want to work. But I don't feel like I'm bringing value to Mr. D right now. You guys are bringing more value to me. So I pitched quite a low number, and they just completely ignored it. Like, it wasn't even like, okay, we're just going to add plus 10. They just went, I think they might have gone double.
Yeesh. That's amazing.
Yeah, which again was for me like, okay, this is a company I'm down with. Like, these are my peeps. And then it's going to 2 years now at Mr. D, and it's been great. Just to summarize, it's been great. The culture is popping. The work is popping. You can feel that you're not working in a stagnant company, but we are pushing and pushing. It's Black Friday. Okay, I guess by the time it comes out, it won't be Black Friday anymore.
Yeah.
But I hope you shopped our specials, guys.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So the e-commerce landscape in South Africa is very I don't know, it's very, there's not a lot of players in the e-commerce space. Right. What do you see in the next 5 years on the e-commerce space? And also, just at Mr. D, are you are you back end or front end, or are you still full stack?
Oh, I'm front end. I'm fully front end. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Was that a by choice or?
Ah, I don't. I can't remember if I applied for any strictly back end jobs.
Mhm.
I think if at a push, I might have applied for full stack.
Mm.
So maybe it was a choice in that sense. But
Mm.
the biggest driver in that job hunting process was whoever takes me. You know.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. E-commerce landscape. 5 years. 5. I mean, there's this Amazon rumbles.
Okay.
It,
That's it.
So that's I don't know. I don't know what you can think. But that's gonna be quite an interesting dynamic. I'm interested to see like how much of South Africa will bite that bait. For the smaller guys, I don't know. And I don't know how we can help them gain more footprint. Or if I'm just ignorant, I just think of the big players and I don't really see the smaller guys. I think platforms like Take a Lot are big on extending the platform for the smaller guys to hop on and kind of,
Right.
not have to worry about setting up their own thing, but,
Can just
kind of
sell
channel
via the
through
platform.
there.
Yeah.
And I think initiatives like that are only going to continue growing. I know Mr. D recently launched a similar thing where there's a focus on small independent restaurants and increasing their platform, their impact on the Mr. D platform. So I am curious about um, seeing what initiatives like those, how they help. Um, Yeah, but I think front of my mind is Amazon and
Yeah.
what
Because that's been in the news a lot lately. Yeah.
Yeah.
How? Maybe a last question because we kind of out of time.
Ah.
How does your work contribute towards the innovation of the food delivery industry?
And beyond, guys, D is for done. This is our latest. This is our
What?
big drive. D is for done.
So D in Mr. D is for done.
Yeah. So we're pushing messaging. pushing the messaging, to start thinking of Mr. D beyond just food delivery, right? Just the delivery of convenience. Anything. D is for
furniture?
done. Yeah,
It's done.
D is for done.
Consider it done.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that it's when I think about the growth that Mr. D has had over the years, which is phenomenal. And then when I think about my mom and dad, who are still like, Mr. Who? There's still such a big market. Because I think that ultimately this is a service that makes sense for anyone. Time is one of the biggest commodities, right?
Yeah.
So if I can just cut the time of going to checkers and queuing and just order on an app and then jiggy it arrives magically. I think that is one of the biggest impacts of a service like Mr. D is buying back time for people in a world where we're running on hamster wheels.
Man, that's such a nice line.
Yeah.
That's such a nice line. Buying back time.
D is for buying back time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, man, there's such a lot of stuff I wanted to go through.
Yeah. I'll be back.
Please come back. Yeah.
I'm inviting myself.
Yeah, because honestly, there's quite a lot. Yeah, we but I'm glad that you took a deep dive, and also you were quite a an avid traveler,
Eh?
we must also talk about those journeys through Africa and beyond. Yeah. So I imagine there'll be round 2 and round 3 going forward.
I'd love to come back.
Listen, thank you for doing this. Yeah, this is one of many. What do you have any last words, any advice to young aspiring developers, teachers out there?
I would say I think my heart is especially for the young aspiring developers who don't know that they are young aspiring developers.
Mhm.
I don't know what words I have for them. I'm just like, my heart is with you. I hope that the path will find you the way that the path found me. I think that we're going to a place where IT is just going to become a skill in everyone's handbag, like just
Yeah,
no matter what
yeah.
industry you're in. So yeah, I think also like now having studied and kind of also tried to do a bit of teaching IT, even though it was reluctant, there are so many platforms out there that are focused on trying to help kids begin to understand what is this programming thing. Highly recommend, off the top of my head, code.org, CodeHS, are some examples where it's such a friendly introduction to the idea of programming. And I think even if you don't feel like I'm a computer person, just try it.
Yeah.
Just try it. There's so much power in having that tool. It's so nice to think about something in the middle of the night and realize that I can build this. And I think everyone out there has like ideas brewing in their head for how to make the world a better place. Learn how to program so that you can build the stuff. Yeah, I don't know if that was coherent, but shout out.
Shout out. Tami, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Big shout out to Old Mountain Studio
Yay.
for allowing us to do this here. Big shout out to Matthew. Is it Matthew?
Who's Matthew?
Matthew. Is it Matthew? Matthew. Oh, yes. Okay. Let's edit that part and make it look nice.
Sorry. Say it again.
Which part?
Big shout out to Matthew.
Big shout out to Old Mountain Studios for giving us the opportunity to do this here. Big shout out to Matthew for your time. We appreciate. So catch you on the next one.